G'day, welcome back to Corp. Thank you for those that commented on my previous video. Obviously, there's a few different subjects we can cover there. But the first thing was that some people did suggest that all I needed to do fix these airports was actually just load and like save and then load a few times. Now, because I did play that last session and then saved, loading that, you can see that these people are now actually moving around. So the red airplanes are on the move. And that was it. All I had to do was save and then load. There's a bug I guess a few people faced, so thank you to those that suggested that. Thank you to those that had other ideas too, of trying things like just sort of disconnecting the cities and everything. There's definitely some good ideas in there. But we do have a fix, so the good news is, and also thinking of the kind comments there, the question of whether I should wait or keep going with this. The most common theme answer was, well, you don't seem to be enjoying it. So I enjoy listening to you do it, but if you're not enjoying yourself, then don't do it. Which I thought was a very nice way of looking at it. So the good news is that we've got this back. We're happy. So hopefully we can survive, and we want to try and get rid of that. So that is the big goal of this one. And the other thing as well is I didn't actually... Falkland Islands was the last episode, and I made no real mention of the Falkland Islands. Port Stanley, never heard of it. My entire knowledge of the Falkland Islands comes from what? There was a war in the Falkland Islands that Margaret Thatcher, I think, was Prime Minister at the time, taking on them. It wasn't a very long war. That's the extent of the Falkland Islands, but based on where it is geographically, I can imagine it's probably a pretty little place down there. Oh, that was a real long wait there. So down here though, I can't remember the name of the area. I have had a few people recommend that this is one of the really beautiful places in the world to visit. The hiking trails and things. Definitely not something I have done. Now, side notes as well on the previous video. Thank you for the comments about what have you learned about South America? What was your schooling? Especially interesting on the people that were born in South America and what history was and how it was taught for them. And also nice to hear that a lot of people also didn't get much in the way of Australian history too. I think local subjects are such a fascinating thing in school if you think about it. If you can imagine how uninteresting kangaroos and emus are to me, whereas to so many people in the world, they would be one of the most exotic animals you can see. It's like, well, you don't have to travel that far. Like, if tomorrow you said to me, all right, go take a picture of a kangaroo, give me a few hours and I'll find one in the wild. It's and I live in the city. It's yeah, they're definitely all over the place. I mean, that being said, like, you send me to America and you watch how ridiculous I am when I see a squirrel. I'm like the dog from Up. And so was almost every Australian. Squirrel! But no, it is good to see that all of these cities are moving on. So it does mean that at the moment, there is going to be a little bit of imbalance because we do have these cities that that are still red. That are these points where we are trying to shift people out. But I reckon we're close. If we can get... If I was on top of every city that wasn't connected, then I think that I would have a really good chance here. Which is a pretty... that may surprise you. If every city that was red currently wasn't red, I would probably not have this red thing up there. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is everyone that I'm working on from here, if you're a city and I have to click on you and you're not to 32,000, you're getting put to 32,000. That's the new level we're going to. Let's get that one out of there. We'll just bounce these guys as a square. Now, obviously, that end of week lag is bad, but this new route lag is not. So definitely appreciative of that, at least. I'm keeping an eye on how much money we've got, because I think that if I can get enough, I can... Ooh, who are we? Santa Cruz. Where are you located? Well, you have to be part of a country that I already have, so... I was going to say logic would say that you're from Ecuador, but I don't think that is what logic would say. Logic would say you're probably owned by Spain. Although I don't own Spain, actually, so that rules that out because Spain is still not on the board. That was one of the really interesting things. I think of all the sort of common threads that were said in the comments on the last video, the most common knowledge South American thing that I have never heard before was that at some point in time, Spain and Portugal made a decision that the east of South America was going to be Portuguese and the west was going to be Spanish. But as a result, because they didn't realize how the country actually thinned at the bottom, and they assumed that this would be the same size all the way down, there actually didn't end up being anywhere near as much Portuguese as there was Spanish. What seems like one of the greatest no-backsies of all time. Well played, Spain. Haiti. That will be an Olympics. Now, this isn't too far out, so I think that what we'll do is we will go between these two cities. Let's have a look. He's 900, he's 1,000, so it is actually the two closest cities of these two. So we will pull that one out. Him all the way up. I think that money is also starting to shoot up a little bit more too, because now all those passengers that weren't moving are moving. So if we slowly start from the bottom here, we have no red cities. It's good we have red airplanes, which is also fine. There is someone who is red. And the other thing is I could be missing exclamation marks here. Where are you going to connect in? That one. Nope. Gracias. Seems like a very friendly place to be. Gracias, Honduras. There's still a lot of open space in America, and I imagine that we will maybe continue to get cities. I think if you look at the ad for Corp, it actually does say that it's tens of thousands of cities. So I don't know how much of an exaggeration that is or how correct it is, but that does seem like a fair few. Now I, doing a quick glance over here, can't see too many red cities. So let's try and address them. Now that guy is obviously going to be a problem. This is where we need to just swing around and look at what ones are being announced here, because it is quite possible these are the ones where now something seems a little broken with this guy. You can see those numbers aren't quite right. Let's just make him catered to for now. His phantom thousands. Cheyenne. Alright, justification Cheyenne. Alright, let's jump to the new one. I think at this point where I'm getting on top of this, we will make sure that we actually do jump to new guys coming in. We've got a lot of people wanting to go to Buenos Aires, but no one's moving. So maybe we've just fallen back into the same problem there. So let's give this a go. Let's hit that save button. Let's save this guy. Let's load this game. See how he goes. There we go. People are moving to Buenos Aires. So good. I mean, unless there's a lot of... I suppose, I mean, every city in the world could be listed under this. So when you look at the top one and go, well, that's only 200. Surely this can't divide that. If every single city north of the Peck on this line is on this list, then I could fully believe that there's that many people here. Kalamazoo is quite popular amongst the people of Los Moches. Moches? But I mean, a lot of this is... The fact that they're sort of just skirting over the top suggests that there's a little bit of questionable going on here. I feel like we're close. I mean, alright, cool, that's a justified one. Where's Carmen that it keeps complaining? We've actually got a countdown going here. You ready? Might actually do this. Playing with fire, having someone that's still only 200 in the mix. Someone did go red, I guess it was probably him. We're so close. Alright, another justified mistake. Yeah, okay, well that one's definitely off a little bit. Do have to make some of these longer routes have a few more planes on them too. You can see that, say, the next guy along next to let's think. How do we pronounce this? Spanish. So, Guadalajara would be the same. Starts with that G-U-A, Guayaquil? Quill. No, Q's aren't hard, are they? How do we pronounce a Q? But the distance that it would take for this plane to get back and forth here versus how long this one will take will mean that this is always going to roadblock. So we will give them a second plane, and then we will give them potentially a third plane too. It actually still could continue to roadblock even despite that. We'll wait for this guy to get well beyond him. Can't imagine that another another airport is going to come in and dethrone what they've currently got going on. And the other thing that we haven't done, Phoenix, in this particular one, is we have not added a new country. Now, what we will do is, because our goal is to hit this 0, and we're getting very close, we're going to add in The Netherlands. And we are going to add the Netherlands to this setup by going... Sell that route, build that route there. Build that route. We will then sell that one, that one. We will get London to bounce up to Norwich. And have him bounce over to Amsterdam. Then we will have Amsterdam to Brussels. Gives us a chance of another place taking supersonic jets as opposed to just Brussels to Luxembourg. I'm not sure if I've ever said it out loud on the videos, but others have certainly pointed out that the only reason that I'm only getting supersonic jets in this connection is because it's my only capital to capital connection. I just went crazy there on Amsterdam. So we're gonna have to get Norwich to jump up and come back down. Does make that quite a long trip in the scale of things in this the European theatre. I have been to the Netherlands as a 15-year-old. Went to Amsterdam. I don't quite remember much of it. I feel like at one point we went through the red light district. I feel like we did. I mean, I don't feel like I lost my childhood because we did. But it didn't overly, like, as a kid that didn't quite understand what the point of it was, it just seemed a bit seedy. Cortez, meet David. Oh, no, sorry, Cortez gets the rule of being big. We are flirting here. We're definitely doing well. And we're getting lots of passengers moving around. It's exciting too because soon we will be at the end of this end of the route, and then we can just continue to span out this way. So close. What bailed on us? Won't even tell us anymore. This guy. Well, understandably, he's got... Although it seems like the... Yeah, I would imagine that either way could be the... Oh, I just lost a supersonic jet because of that, because that was one of my few connections. I remember what I was looking at, which I never did investigate into. Santa Cruz. Now, this is going to be a tricky one, because how am I going to search the words Santa Cruz to find out what country that's a part of? Because I would imagine that there are quite a few Santa Cruzes in the world, especially saying Santa Cruz, South America. I don't feel like it's going to limit it. So let's just see if I can find this by just sort of zooming in on a map. Okay, the Galapagos Islands. That's what we're looking at there. Now that is something that is right up there on my wish list of places to visit in the world. Right up there. It and Easter Island are sort of this section of the world's island visits I'd like to do. Easter Island, though, I really do feel like it's tricky because it's so far out in the middle of nowhere. that it would have to be like, you would have to so badly want to see those statues. And I mean, I've taken 40-minute detours to see things and gone like, oh yeah, that was okay. That um, that I would be hesitant about that. Best example of that was probably the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is an amazing thing to see. It is spectacular. It is located about right there. But before I went and saw the Taj Mahal, I went and saw within the 2 weeks prior, I was in Lhasa, Tibet, here, and I saw Patala Palace. Now, if you haven't ever looked at a picture of Patala Palace, go check that out. Potala, I think it is. Palace, Lhasa, Tibet, Lhasa, Lhasa. It is the most stunning building I have seen in my life. It's positioned on a mountain. I remember when I saw 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt. They one of the last scenes in that, because obviously he's spending his time with the Dalai Lama in that movie, so it's centered around that area. He walks past Patala Palace on the outside, and I was like, "Wow, look at that building! Why have I never heard of this building before?" And I looked it up, and I was like, "There are places." All right, well, we're crashing away again here because that guy's not moving. There are more places in the world I need to visit. This world still feels so like so big. And then within, I think, 6 years, I got to go there. So I was living the dreams. But to have seen that was probably the biggest disservice to then going and seeing the Taj Mahal. Yes, 6 days later or so. Because you're sort of like, it's way more of a tourist attraction. It is a fine building. But you sort of go like, yeah, I've seen buildings. So in that same logic, the idea of going all the way to Easter Island, that you would have to travel hours out of your way, and actually for someone like me, I would have to fly across the... If say you were coming from America or even Europe, you would come down this way into South America, and then you would bounce out to Easter Island. For me, I would have to overshoot Easter Island by hours and then fly back to it. For me, that, I think, mentally makes you feel like you're going in reverse a whole lot more. Making it that slightly harder sell. Has anyone been to Easter Island? That's a question for you. I'm even curious to see if anyone of the any South American people have. I wouldn't think that you're the most likely to. Actually, my money is going to be on. It's going to be someone European who has. Has anyone been to Easter Island? Has anyone been to the Galapagos Islands? Has anyone been to both? Which one's better? I'd rather the turtles and the closeness to everything else up here. I've looked at trips that you could go to, Lake Titicaca and the Amazon and Machu Picchu, because that's all sort of in this area, I believe. And so for someone that hasn't ever been to South America at all, I feel like that would be the real ticking the key boxes of the continent. David, do something about yourself. Right, David was just broken. It's not David's fault. We forgive you, David. Let's try that save load again. That's better. You happy now, David? See someone leave, David. Hopefully not my mother. It's a family joke because my father's name's David. Audience of one, that one. Okay, so... Yes, this part, and then if I was traveling on my own, it would be down here. It would be where I think I would want to go. But with my daughter, my traveling has definitely shifted. I did have I'm not sure if I've said this on this before, but the way that I used to travel. So me and my wife, we got married, we traveled together, and we did a lot of the United States and Canada. That was sort of our... For years, that seemed to be the only places we really traveled to. And then my daughter was born, and so she was, as most babies are, young. And she's not going to be fun to travel with. She's not going to enjoy traveling. She's not going to remember it. The only thing we're going to remember is having to look after a baby while traveling. It's not going to be fun. So what we did instead was, and my wife came up with this idea, was what if we travel separately? Like, my daughter's not going to know that she's that one parent's not there. So what we will do is one of us goes on holidays, the other one stays home, looks after her. Then we swap, and the other one goes on holidays. And so it was an opportunity to, after having been married for how many years were we married? 7 or 8 years at that point. It was an opportunity to, all right, well, the one condition of it was where you have to go somewhere the other person doesn't want to go. And so my wife is not one for the rugged trail. So yeah, I did hit a lot of, that was where I sort of swung through Mongolia, China, Nepal, India, and then Madagascar as well. But I can even tell you at the point where I went to Madagascar, my daughter was three, and it wasn't even at that point where she definitely was missing me more being away, but I was missing her more. Oz for Oz. So that the idea of even traveling now with her is, it's like, no, that's gonna be torturous for us as well. So now it's shifted back into, all right, well, where can we travel as a family? What are our places where you don't have to travel too far, and that a little kid is going to enjoy? So the first place we did do so at about 3.5, we took it to Hong Kong. We've got Hong Kong Disneyland. There's an ocean park. It's just a sort of nice city. It's not that far to travel to from here. Luckily, the flight home was at midnight, so she slept the whole way, which is, after that first flight was great. And in fact, I don't even think I mentioned this. What we did was we did that on Christmas Eve. We flew, so Christmas Day she woke up and we took her to Disneyland Christmas Day. And if you are from Japan, if you are from America, if you are from China, and you have done any of the other Disney parks, maybe in France, you would not believe how quiet Hong Kong Disneyland is, particularly on a day like that. So I would wholeheartedly say that Hong Kong Disneyland is that if you want to take a little kid to a Disneyland, that is the one to go to. It is quiet, it is easy. It doesn't open till 10 a.m. If you want to have your strategies down of going to Disneyland LA and you're getting up at 6 a.m. or whatever, Hong Kong is forcing your hand there. You can't go in until 10. So cool your jets, take a leisurely morning, and enjoy yourself. It's great. All right, so is this guy actually having people leave? No one's leaving that way. Is anyone leaving north? No, we're just dumping more guys. All right, so we've just hit our problem again. So again, I mean, this is just, it's inconvenient. It's definitely not bothering me like it was yesterday, or the last time I played. That wasn't yesterday. But we do have lots of red planes moving around, so it's a really nice movement that we've got going on here. We haven't hit this, but I'm forgiving myself at the moment for not being able to achieve this, because cities are just taking people and then they're not moving on. Not really too much I can do. Yes, so continuing on that line of thought, the other places that I then considered, all right, well, where can we take a child between the age of 6 and 10? Did I save already? I don't remember. Between 6 and 10, what would be the best places to go? Now, remembering that one of the conditions here is you don't want to travel too far, because you don't want that kid to become, you don't want to make yourself miserable by going for a long flight. So from here, we have, this was my short list. Singapore, and we did have a Singapore trip scheduled for April of 2020, and you can probably guess why that got cancelled. Tokyo, maybe Seoul, Shanghai, Hong Kong again, and maybe if you're adventurous, LA, and going for that, or Hawaii. Now, the problem with every single place that I just listed there is you may realize that every single one of those is a pretty significantly big city, with the exception of Hawaii. So in a point where sort of you can travel, COVID's still around, but you can travel, it does still feel like kind of high risk that you're dealing in there. So yeah, good guys are moving out of that city. So you would, that does make you a little bit more hesitant in sort of making any of those, like going to any of those cities. But I was listening to someone at mentioned that they'd just come back from South Africa, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting concept. You could fly to Johannesburg and then go up to Kruger National Park, like what I've done before. And I thought, well, that's totally different because, I mean, you're briefly in Johannesburg there, but if you're spending the majority of your time in a national park, you're going to be so isolated that maybe that's what you should be considering for a sort of a COVID, hopefully winding down sort of holiday where we can travel, but you can still catch it. But again, I thought, well, my daughter's still too young for that. I remember the last time I went, I think the guide said that she wouldn't want to take a child younger than 8, and it's because you do need the kid to listen. Generally, when you're going on safari and you've got the big trucks, if an animal sees the big truck, they're going to just identify it as a big animal, a big creature thing moving through. But if you stand up on that, an animal can identify it as a... Oh, I made the comment that I wasn't going to have to replace this, and this guy, he knew what he was doing. Whereas if you stand up on it, it can see you as an individual, and so that may cause something like a lion, which may not attack the truck, may then decide to attack the individual. So I think even when I was there, they were mentioning about how a kid, a 3-year-old, had gotten eaten by a jaguar. So definitely with a kid of 3 when I was there, that did make me go, all right, let's not jump to this. So then I thought, all right, well, but I've cracked the secret here. What we want to go somewhere where there isn't a lot of people. So where can I go that would be, say, going to a place I've never been before? It's international travel because I just want to get back into traveling internationally somewhere. What can we do? And so I am happy to announce that I have an international trip currently booked. I will, in a few months' time, with my family, go to Fiji. Yeah, lovely little tropical island getaway of Fiji, where in terms of things to see and do, like if you were going there for particular stuff, I don't think there's anything that's going to be overly standout. It is more just going to be, I completely have the intention that is just going to be 7 days of swimming and sunbathing and just sort of relaxing. And definitely with those other sort of trips that I talk about where I go to Tibet or India and things, relaxing is not normally the way that I would approach a trip. So it'll be a culture shock for me. But I think already going in, I think just the idea of getting to go overseas is exciting enough. So I guess that's another question I can throw out there as well. Have you been to Fiji? And what do you recommend doing? We already have our hotels. We already have sort of like, I guess, our dinner plans booked and prepared. But is there anything that was to see there, the touristy things that you did that you were actually like, oh, this was great? One of the funny things I saw was that there was this Castaway Island, which is where, quite literally, they filmed the Tom Hanks movie Castaway. And it just didn't... The one video I was watching of it was a tour guide that just didn't really sell it for me. It was just, this is the beach where Tom Hanks was in the movie Castaway. This is the rock where he marked off his days when he was on the island in Castaway. It's like, yeah, all right, well, I feel like you have to really have liked the movie Castaway to do that. I have a volleyball. This is Wilson from the movie. Yeah, from the movie Castaway. Yeah. Okay. Now these guys up here, these guys could be getting red. If we see this guy go back red, it's a good sign that this is actually still in operation. It's just he's overloading. And that is completely reasonable because these are some pretty long lines that these two guys are having to deal with. Let's double what they've got going on. I'm also curious to hear if you have been to Fiji, what's the distance you traveled to go to Fiji? Because I would, to me, it would be Australian, New Zealand sort of holiday destination. I would be surprised if someone has come from Europe with the intention of going to Fiji. It just doesn't. A lot of the island places, I would think that if you came all the way down here and you wanted to go to a beach, you would just go to Cairns or Brisbane or something like that, or even Sydney. Like you wouldn't continue on to islands. But I mean, it could totally be wrong. It's again, it's that sort of perception thing that from where you are in the world can completely change your perception on a place or a thing. Like I was talking about with my indifference to kangaroos. The one that always really gets me is in Indonesia. I don't remember where it is. I'm just gonna circle this area. Is the island of Bali in Indonesia, which is if you talk Bali in Australia, you were talking about where like you just go to holiday. Like the most Australians, bogan would probably be the best term I can think of, where you that's what you would associate, that people who like just want to go overseas, just have a crazy time, get drunk, party. You go to Bali, but then you look at things like you read I read Michelle Obama's biography, and she was talking about how like Barack went and wrote his one of his books on the tropical island of Bali, and it's like, well, I mean, when Barack Obama goes there and Michelle Obama's talking about it, it definitely makes it sound like exotic. That is not the country that I'm picturing in my head, though. When you when you talk Bali, it's a similar vein. It's not to say I think Fiji looks stunning, but it just doesn't seem like a place that if it's easier to get to Hawaii, if it's easier to get to, if you've never been to Australia before, would you go all the way there? So I guess my sub question is, have you been to Fiji? If you went to Fiji, did you have a holiday in Australia before going there, like it was part of the same trip? And if you didn't, what was the appeal of going to Fiji? Because yeah, again, I'm just genuinely curious. It is different perspectives from around the world, or is what I'm really enjoying about this video series. Learning about the world, and my international audience here is definitely making that certainly more enjoyable. So I feel like we're close here. I would say forgivably close to saying that this. I think this is doable, in spite of the game. I think this is playable to a point that I will continue to do it. I might not do it as regularly as some of my other series, but I will continue to churn through it because I am enjoying just sort of like unlocking a few countries, learning more about the world, being ashamed that I couldn't guess what islands were sitting here when I so badly want to go to them. All right, well, we will call this one here. I mean, technically, this one is the Netherlands. And look, we've got a Netherlands city that I've just ignored this entire time. And we will lose our Amsterdam to Brussels connection as we put that in. As always, thanks for watching. And thank you for the comments on the previous video and any that come on this video. And until next time, and until this plane is upgraded, I catch you later. See ya.